Greetings and welcome. Thanks for tuning in to RP MMO Radio. I will be your host, Ashen Phoenix, and of course with me, as always, is the two ladies, Jazz and Sib. How's it going, ladies?
Hello.
Doing all right?
Oh, yeah.
Doing wonderful. Well, this will be our 13th episode. We're doing it, if you're listening to us live right now, I am in my house. If you're listening to it a week from now, when it will go live as a podcast, I'm in Simi Valley, California. Ooh, time rift. This must be what it's like when we RP with Australians and it's already the next day. Time zones are weird. But anyway, so this episode 13, linear versus open world RP. Not so much the roleplay is linear or open world, but the game itself and how that stuff kind of affects and changes in subtle ways the way RP goes about, and some of the little hiccups that you run into depending on which one the game is. Mostly it's a topic Circe had brought up months ago, so long ago she forgot she brought it up. In regards to back when the Secret World Legends was still kind of getting ready to come out and in beta, which if you didn't see, we actually, Jess and I did kind of a let's play of it for about an hour and a half till we got to a certain point. We're like, all right, we're good. It was fun. People, Circe joined in with us on that. We played long enough actually to catch up with her, which goes into her review of it was okay. So it was actually just a lot of fun just getting to play it. Honestly, not a whole lot had changed from when I had Sib and I played it originally, and we got decently far. I know we got into the main city hub of London, and then we moved on from there. And we got 2 or 3 zones into it, and before we just kind of like, it's okay.
I know you enjoyed it a lot more than I did.
I
was kind of like on the fence the whole time.
I enjoyed what they tried to do differently, which like the quests and the storytelling aspects they did. But for me, it was more the story that they had come up with, which is pretty original and pretty good. It's just as I think Jazz and I both concluded, the execution could use some work. I know it actually has a pretty good roleplay community from what we heard. It's just not a game for us, which, there's nothing wrong with that. I got nothing bad against anybody that would play it. It's just, we're doing what we do, and if we don't talk and criticize or comment or give our opinions, it's not much of an opinion show. So
yeah, exactly.
We're kind of obligated to give our opinion, whether it's good or bad. And trust me, even games I like, I can find something bad, because there's no such thing as a perfect game. Even the greatest of games, there's always something that can be a little better.
Just a quick question. Did you guys, by chance, hear, like, locations of the RP, where it might be or where it can be found in the game?
Supposedly London. Like that's the main... the main hub of that stuff now. And also
there's quite a few cities you could go to, but I know London was one.
London's a city. There's no actual combat and stuff going on in there. There's no zombies or mummies or anything that attack you. But the other zones, they're basically, if you go to Egypt, obviously it's a combat zone. If you went to Transylvania, combat zone. The city you start out with in Maine, way up there. Creepy Maine things. I think they only included that one because of the home of Stephen King and so many other really weird horror writers. I don't know what it is about that area that they fester and grow. What's our favorite hun? One of our favorites, Mark Tufo, who does the series called Zombie Fallout, which is both is just a hysterical zombie series. It's not your typical thing. And he does other things like Lycan Fallout, which has werewolves, which he does very, very well. Mm-hmm. And
cool.
Yeah, he just pumps them out, and he's just to give you what I think this is what sold both Chris and I on the book from almost the very first chapter was it starts off he's just a nobody really, and he's a germaphobe that gets stuck in the zombie apocalypse. So there's that. But the very first thing is one of his kids comes home and slams the door. It's like, Dad, there's something's weird's going on. And he comes down in a towel and he's like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. These goddamn kids do it on my lawn. And he almost opens the door and his kid convinces him not to. So he looks through the peephole and there's a zombie out there like licking the door. And the first thing he says is, there's some asshole licking my peephole.
It was
He's like, wait a minute. Now that I write that down, that doesn't sound nearly. It's all written in first person, like he's a journal. So it's a fantastic series.
Yeah, and he's got other ones like Indian Hill.
Yeah, Indian Hill.
What I like about
which is
him
Aliens.
About Talbot is Tufo is he's got several different series of books, but they're all based around Mike Talbot. They're aliens.
It's like alternate realities of him.
Yeah.
Like in one of them, it's zombies that attack the world. The other one, it's like in the Indian Hill, it's a alien attack that takes him out of a Widespread Panic concert along with everyone there. He likes Widespread Panic. But
no, it's a good series. If anybody's looking for a good book or several books.
Yeah, he's got probably a good. I think the Zombie Fallout series is up to 10 by itself, and then he has a few individuals like Callus Rose that will just tear out your soul. Poor girl.
Let's not forget to mention Tim.
And then Tim.
Oh my God, that one
is a zombie clown.
Yeah. And it is not for.
It is not for children. No. But anyway, we're getting way off topic. Anyway, we really like Mark Tufo. We've got all his freaking books. He's an awesome guy. He's very, very cool. Anyway, so what have we been up to in RP? Anybody want to jump in first? It's only been a week, which I can say this time.
Well, we did the thing with Secret World, so that was big on my list.
That. Although we didn't really role play in that, but that was still fun to do.
But it was definitely on my list of things to do, and I've been very busy at work. So when I get home, I've like at least 2 days I didn't even really go into ESO besides to cycle my characters through the horse and research stuff.
Yeah, I do that same thing. Faster horses, faster.
Yes, upgrade the horses, check my research, make sure it's all up to par, and then log out. And I've done that a couple times when I'm just exhausted. I've been trying to write, and I got some writing done for my character Cial, and finished a storyline for her last week. And this week, I've just been role playing her and just trying to find new role players and new storylines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to. That'll be episodes we'll have to do a creative for stuff for writing, like doing journals and stories and how that expands and helps develop characters. And also it's fun. It's fun to do.
Yeah.
One of these days, there's a whole list of topics we want to get to, but we only do 2 shows a month, so it's going to take some time, which is all the more reason to hang with us. What about you, Sib? You got anything? I know we got at least one thing that you and I did together.
Yeah, it's about the extent of my RP. I got to RP with you on 2 different characters. I'm trying to set up a storyline for my main character. It's my orc.
Volley.
Ball. Yeah. But no, I enjoyed that, and it helped me, get into that character, which I like. So I'm hoping to be able to do some writing sometime in the future.
Yeah, that's one thing about when you play 2 characters on the same account. They never actually meet, even when one's looking for the other, which is all the more opportunity to write something.
But no, I have been a lot happier because I've been able to be in the game and actually play. So it's been fun. My world has slowed down since baseball. So
yeah. And I had the RP with it was Volley's mom, looking for her after but Volley's mom was in hiding and stuff like that, and so she.
Oh, that would be cool.
And that's that character was that you guys were there too, but everything else was going on with that one guy that stepped on a trap that the friend of his left to shoot him into the ceiling, which was actually pretty funny. But yeah, that was cool. And then of course, yeah, I had to pass on Kenix over to Volley. That is, her mama was looking for her, and she took that rather violently, as if he would somehow magically know her name and all that stuff, and tried to choke the life out of him, because she is a violent arc, and they should all be put down.
Hey.
What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking.
She's
You can't be
just
I've
young
seen
and-
Lord of the Rings. I know how this ends.
No.
And then over on Tarvala, I killed a bunch of Khajiit babies because Dark Elf. The Khajiit had stolen something from the temple, and the temple was and then tried to sell it back to them, and the temple was like, "Oh yeah, we'll buy it back. We don't know who stole that," and then proceeded to slaughter them all when the chest spilled over and showed it was only full of rocks. And then they found, because who doesn't, it's like the Enterprise, who doesn't bring their kids to us, a trade with a horrible tribunal full of dark elves. They brought 3 of their children along with them in the boat near the dock. And the funny thing is it is a Dunmer only guild, but a lot of people it is really hard for people to get over the human aspects of things like that, because I would never in my wildest life, I cried when we put our cat down, and she was 15 years old, and there was no way of saving her. But, I'm not a heartless monster, but the character, unfortunately, is required to be kind of a heartless monster. They look at things like that as subhuman. They're not, they don't even see them as useful animals most of the time.
And not to mention, it's like a militia.
Yeah, it's really like not to go too real world, but like Islam, where they have the religion and the city states part, or back a long time ago where the Catholic Church was the government. That's what the tribunal is. It's like it's
Iran kind of runs like that.
Yeah, exactly.
They are I forget what it's called.
Theocracy.
There we go.
Yeah, and they are literally a theocracy. Only their gods are living among them. And so and they're dark elves. They're vicious things. So some of them had a hard time with it. Like one of them was the reason she ended up. They were ordered to just throw them in the river or feed them to the fish, and some of the dark elves had gone downstream. It's like, well, you're only 50 feet away. Obviously, we know you're just going down there to catch them downstream. So she was like, well, orders were to make sure they were dead and feed them to the fish. Fire Blast will do that. They'll just be extra crispy for the fish. Fireball later, and that didn't make the people downstream too happy, but following orders. And I did feel like a total shit, but it is story and it is fantasy. And sometimes it definitely helps you pull out, it pulls at your heartstrings a little bit, because of course you'd never do that. But it is funny, some of the hang-ups that you have to let go, because when you play a character, just like you would in writing a book with a monster or something like that, obviously you're never eating the brains of somebody, but somebody has to write it. So
yeah.
But that was a lot of fun, and it was one of those hard things to figure out how to follow orders as a character, and then be totally violent.
Not have nightmares after.
And a total bitch, yeah. All I can see is like cute little like cat-sized kittens, like meow.
God,
that's awful.
I didn't need that image. Thank you.
No, that was bad.
KFK, Kentucky Fried Khajiit.
No.
With your 13 herbs and spices.
Oh my God.
They're so tender at that age. So anyway, what do we got in the news? I know I've got something here. It's not necessarily MMO related, but it's gaming related, and it's also no shit. So, but I know Jazz had something too. Do you want to go first, Jazz, or you want me to go ahead and go?
You go ahead and go.
All right, I'll go. New study, previous research found that video games make you sexist was bogus.
Well, of course it is.
Who would have thought? And of course they mean things like Grand Theft Auto, which was what they did the study on originally, which, I mean, if any game, I guess, would do something that was going to do something like that, it'd be that game, but it's basically full of shit. They it's when it came out back, Italian research provided quote unquote evidence, and research was picked up by things like the Daily Beast and uncritically spread around the web. By the way, I get this story from, where is it? Heat Street is where I'm, it's a gaming thing, but
yeah, I actually had somebody tell me that because I was arguing with my kids about whether or not they could play that god-awful game.
Yeah, well, and there's...
I forget. And it's and they were like, Mom, it's not going to make me... I said, I didn't say it would make you be anything. I said, I think the game is disgusting,
it's the same reason I don't let them watch Game of Thrones. It's not going to make them want to behead Ned Stark and kill Sean Bean like he always gets killed, but I don't want them to see, man dongs and beheadings and some incest between siblings, and there's some of the things that they say, like the Hound says. I don't want him to learn some of the horrible words that they say. He's a teenager, he'll learn it in time. I don't need to speed that up.
Yeah, and that's the same reason I was like, when you live in your own house and you want to play this, that's fine. Yep. But in my house, this game is never entering, ever.
Exactly. And like with our son, we let him play the, Call of Duty. He's been playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, things like that. And he enjoys them, but there's a line between just shoot 'em ups. He also knows how to use a real gun. So he knows he's not one of those idiot kids that it's like, oh, it's super easy.
Yeah.
It promotes family values. Seriously, yeah, no,
no,
no, it doesn't.
No. And I think that's probably an important thing to make the distinction with, is that if you're already sexist, then something like that, some game like that, can reinforce those.
It can exacerbate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's certainly not going to take a normal kid and turn him into a sexist.
Any more than more than playing a shooting FPS game or something like that turns him into a gun-wielding maniac at Columbine.
Right.
Regardless of what, you
tend to cycle
says.
Towards games that agree with your mindset. So
yeah.
I think that's why they get confused about that, is because
right. Well, and
people
a lot
who
of that
are on the edge will watch edgy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. People that are into certain types of things tend to watch certain times, bronies tend to watch My Little Pony. Otherwise they wouldn't be a brony, would they?
Yeah.
It's it's the least, it's not a violent comparison, so it works. But basically they this group, two researchers reanalyzed the data published by Christopher Ferguson and M. Brandt Donnellan published their results in the Journal of Youth and Adolescence, and found that there was, quote, little evidence for video games affecting sympathy towards women. And basically, let's be honest, if you have shitty parents, you're going to be a shitty person. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. Don't be a shitty parent,
If you don't reinforce positive role model, then your kids are going to have to find it on their own, and they'll find it wherever they can.
Will. Whether it be through their and let's we were all kids. It was a long time ago, but your friends influence you way more than any media. I mean, don't get me wrong, media can have an influence on you.
Yes,
but
it can reinforce what you're already.
But your friends, and those people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, friends, family, things like that, they can actually change you, and that's really where all that stuff comes from. So and I bring this up because one of the things in MMOs, of course, is the scantily clad, boob-windowed, as ESO calls it, very little armor, that kind of thing, fantasy. Although, I don't know, what do you think? Other than a few of the Asian MMOs, which they still go for that, but that's more, it's so over the top, it's like a fan service thing. It's like playing Dead or Alive with a game that literally gives the chest of women they call it boob physics, it's like it has its own physics.
Or like Conan has penis physics. So
and boob physics. They had both.
And boob physics.
At least they were equal opportunity offenders. If you were offended by that.
Have you ever seen that little GIF that has the stick figure jumping up and down, showing his dong swinging back and forth? Have you ever seen that? I'll have to send it to you. It's hilarious.
I think I have, but yeah.
It was like me if I was given 24 hours to be a guy.
Oh yeah.
And I was like jumping up and down and watching it move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's just
hilarious.
It's like one person on the end of a 2-person jump rope, just wee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
There you go. Yeah.
So there. So all right. So what's Jazz? What you got?
Well, I read an article that was very interesting about choosing a game for you and your spouse to play together. Which
Sounds
I
like
found
a terrible idea. I would never do that.
Like, because I originally started playing EQ with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
He had been playing it and liked it, and told me that I should come play it, and I was like, whatever.
Nerd.
And then and then he bought it for me for my birthday, and kind of forced the issue because we spent the money. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll come play.
Son of a bitch.
So
all right.
I learned how to play it, and I found I was actually having fun. And I actually have to say that reading the article made me remember all the funny moments that we had with me learning how to play. Because I had never played anything but city building games.
Like Sims or SimCity.
Sims, SimCity, Caesar, that kind of stuff. And Sims was like the most involved game I'd ever played, ever. So then I got EQ2 and suddenly had to aim and hit things. And I'm sure that Jason could probably fill an hour with amusing stories of me learning how to play and all the things I said that just had him like crying. So he was laughing so hard he cried because I would be just like, this is stupid. What do you mean I have to do this? Why would I do that? It looks very cute. It's all fuzzy. Why would I hit it?
Yeah.
So
I don't want to wear that armor. It looks stupid. I want to wear this armor. Yeah, but that's 10 levels below you. I don't care.
Yes, we had that conversation. Where I was like, but I like
fashion is the real end game.
Why do I have to wear that? It's ugly. He was like, because you do, or you're going to die a lot. So he was a tank and I was a mage. And you can imagine the fun things that came from that.
Yeah.
Like teaching me to run toward him, not away from him, as I aggroed the entire zone.
Yeah. But I don't want to get you killed.
And he was like, they're going to kill me as soon as they leash. Come back to me. I'm like, it's hitting me, help me.
Yeah.
Well, run toward me, darling. Yes. So reading this made me remember that, and also how cool he was when our interests diverged and he moved on and I stayed in EQ.
Yeah.
So
that's a topic we'll have to go over in
yeah.
depth, because we have the same thing. And for Chris and I, ours was a bit more of a struggle because she was first getting into games, but we had both had bad divorces. There's no such thing as a good divorce, but where both our spouses had separately. We worked together, but you know, she was just some weird chick that worked there, and I was some dorky dude that worked there that she didn't even find remotely cute.
Oh, I found that hard to believe.
No one thought, yeah. Well, I only hear that from our daughter on the very first time I met her. My mom doesn't think you're very cute.
The problem was I had went
different
on a
mic.
A different mic.
And she said at the moment I got in the car, and I'm like, well, this is going to be a fucking great night.
Because we hadn't even, like, dating wasn't even an option between me and him right now. We were just hanging out, being friends.
But because, well, we'll go. But because of that, they use the internet as well to, especially with both of us to do the cheating. So we had. It wasn't so much that we didn't have trust each other, but we had trust issues, and it took us years and years to power through those. And now we're doing much better.
We need to say what the game was we first started in. Do you remember?
Oh, that's right.
Wizard's World.
Wizard 101, the little kids card. It was because the second computer we had wasn't strong enough to play anything else.
Yeah, and he was trying to get me into this kind of gaming because I played console games, not PC.
Yeah.
But it was hilarious. I remember playing that game. It was fun.
It actually was a really it's a very cute game. That's why and our wallpaper and behind, if you ever watch the videos live, Wizard 101 comes up now and again. But yeah, you have to do me a favor, actually save that article, because we'll have to come back to that. That's a really good topic, especially for couples and things like that, because there's definitely benefits and there's definitely some pitfalls that can come along with couples gaming if you're like especially like we were in the beginning, where if one of us was playing without the other, there was almost going to be, words spoken and probably a fight about it, even though it was a stupid game. And yes, we know all that, but there's a lot
I can understand it with your history. I mean, that's one of the things they address is giving each other space to enjoy the game. And it was funny because when I was reading this article, I was like, Jay just like nailed every one of these, because he did it so well to not make me feel like I couldn't play if he didn't play. And I ended up playing, because we were on a non-roleplay server for a really long time, called Nariac. Well, it was something else, and then it was Nariac when they merged. And we had a bunch of role players that we'd associated with, but it was on a non-roleplay server, and I wanted to go to the roleplay server.
Yeah. And
the guy that I was role-playing with was a friend of mine who went on to become a fully published writer that I'm still friends with. Was like, let's go to Antonia Vale, because that's where all the roleplay is. And my husband's like, you do understand that everyone there is insane.
It's kind of like Balmung on Final Fantasy. That's how everyone thinks of that server as well.
Yeah. And I was like, well, artists are crazy, so I want to go there. And he ended up joining me. Remember Triton?
Oh, yeah.
Triton's character was originally a joke.
Really?
He made Triton because it was going to be Triton boring. And that was his character's, going to be his character's name, but he ended up getting kind of pulled into my RP that I had created there and helping me start the guild, and everything just kind of went from there, and the rest is history, and he became Triton the Faith. But that was originally going to be a joke name, Triton Boring.
Nice.
That is funny.
But yeah, make sure you hold on to that article, because we'll have to use.
I will.
Because that'll be a good one to use whenever we get to that topic. Which
let me see if I can.
Might be sooner than later.
Let's see.
Yeah. So before we get into our main topic, and while she's doing that, we'll go ahead and do the word from our sponsor, of course, which is this time Open Worlds Roleplay Training Camp. Hey, are you looking to expand your horizons, to see vistas of imagination like you've never seen? Then do I have the place for you? Open Worlds Roleplay Training Camp. Yeah, that's right. Our training camp will teach you how to roleplay with the best of them. Do people say your RP is flat and uninspired? Well, they are probably right. After our training camp, though, you will be as exuberant and energetic as me. Need an example? We'll teach you to do such things as emoting. First, you /E or EM or emote with the slash in front of them. And then you describe what you do, like so. I gaze out over the city, leaning upon the railing of the balcony, the chill air blowing. Wow, amazing. Or combat. /E dodges to the left, the right hook spotted out of the corner of my eye. I duck lower, lifting quickly from the crouch into a jaw-shattering uppercut. Wow, I feel the intensity. It is like I am actually there. So contact us and schedule your weekend at Open Worlds Roleplay Training Camp. Your friends will be amazed at the difference. Well, there you go. You too can be a exuberant role player.
Oh my gosh.
I love our ads.
I do. I love our ads. That's just hilarious.
Some of those voices surprisingly take a lot of air.
Yes, I've actually been told that by people that do voices, that it requires a lot of
lung capacity.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't, and fortunately sometimes I have the chesticular fortitude to do just that.
Chesticular?
Yeah, it's a word if I make it up.
Okay.
So our main topic, linear versus open world and what it does to roleplay. Before we go into it, I'm going to go over to what we mean by linear and open world, because not everybody knows exactly what the difference is. For example, Sib, who I had to explain it to.
I have an idea, but I wanted...
But you wanted to make sure, which is why I'm going to go over what I mean. Because everyone has slightly different ideas, and there are varying levels of it. But for the most part, you know, linear MMOs are like those like Star Wars The Old Republic, EverQuest 2, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, Secret World, things like that. Basically, the areas are level restricted or quest restricted, and you unlock and explore them quest to quest, zone to zone, like hub to hub. They'll
also called theme park,
right? Or theme parks, yeah, basically, linear. Where you just go from one to the other, and it's all mapped out for you. You know, most MMOs, especially over the last 10 to 15 years, I would say, are probably fit into this overall. Probably get 75%. There are some, you know, and most of them are story driven, especially the games like Star Wars The Old Republic, which, I mean, that one's completely story driven per class. Even
I would say that's very linear.
Oh yeah,
you have to go. Even
the zones themselves, they're you might be outside, but it's almost like just going from hallway to hallway into a big section, then another hallway. Yeah. And for open world, that's more like ESO, Lord of the Rings. Currently, BDO is sort of in that vein because the entire world is open and it's actually seamless. There's no zoning in Black Desert Online. I forget not to use. The other one was Lord of the Rings Online. If I didn't say it, Lotro. Of course, the difference with Black Desert is it does have the leveling thing a bit, so you can actually go into an area that will whoop your butt. But it is still one big open world. Star Wars Galaxies back in the day, a couple of them. It seems like the open world model for MMOs is actually getting ready to have a second come around with things like Ashes of Creation, Crowfall, Pantheon, and a whole bunch of others that are in the works. I don't know. I know, what was that one? Cersei would probably know because they actually were doing it. It's Valiance Online, which is a spiritual successor to the canceled and often really touchy subject of City of Heroes.
Yes,
I don't know what they're going to be doing, but it's a spiritual successor to that. And with the open world, there are games that are basically you can just, you know, pick a direction, walk. You'll bump into something to do or explore, whether it be a quest, but you're not led there, or, you know, and you can be. But if you bump into something beforehand, it's no big deal. You won't be... Yes, Valiance. That's what I said. And while they do still have story quests, they don't lock you out of the other combat or keep you from exploring the world. Like ESO, I just finished the main story quest in that, and honestly, it didn't really unlock anything new that I couldn't already go to. It was just a story in itself. But you know, other than maybe a few other difficulties and things like that, but that's kind of the big difference between them. And of course, depending on which way they do that, it changes the way characters and the world around you might or might not evolve, and how the lore and story may or may not progress as well. And of course, if the game's story is progressing and everybody knows it, the problem with that comes in is not everybody's progressing that at the same level. So right. That's where we come in. And does one really make a better RP environment over the other, which is kind of what we're going to go into. As I was saying, both can be MSQ based, which is a main story quest, and which is its own obstacle. Some of them EverQuest 2. EverQuest 2 was like that, but it was, you couldn't go to certain zones, or you could, but you would get your butt whooped, especially early on, if you were way under leveled. you know.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. And the others with the linear model, if the MSQ is story based, it can be its own obstacle. And a lot of the linear games, you can't progress to another zone until you've gotten past a certain portion.
Or you can, but not follow the quest line.
Right.
If you lose track of the quest line, you're gonna have a hard time catching the next quest line.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think like that was one of the problems with the recent expansion Stormblood from Final Fantasy XIV was, they were having the DDoS attacks and people couldn't get past the fight of Raubon, and you couldn't pass that. You didn't get to go to the next area, which was like Kogani, the Asian place. You were stuck there until, they fixed that, or you just happened to luck out. So that was, that's a huge hurdle and a huge stopping block that, that a linear game might throw in part of you. So what this has to do with roleplay is, like we had, I think we've mentioned it before, because it was the one that I remember being one of the most contentious, and it also happened in Star Wars: The Old Republic, where we were all role-playing. Jazz, I know, was there. I don't remember if Sib was or not, because I know she was playing the game. I think you were. I think because it was early on still, when most of us were still in there from EQ2, and we were all around, and some guy just walks up. He's like, well, I'm out of a job. The Empire disbanded the, Secret Service, or the whatever it was called that they had there from the Agent Quest line. It's like, yeah. By the way, spoiler alerts: the Agent Quest line ends up with them disbanding the agents.
Yeah.
It's like 6 years old. Spoiler.
It's okay.
But and everyone was like, "No, it's not." No, it's like, yeah, I just got. It's just, yeah. It could be. He was following the character as it was in Imperial Intelligence. Thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously. He was following his character as though it was actually the one inside that story, which is its own set of problems.
He was playing the hero, and that's just the death knell to begin
right.
with.
But even if he was just taking the information, the lore from that story quest, and his character, he had only just found out, or maybe he wasn't even the main guy. The fact is that in his headcanon, as they call it, he was suddenly that Imperial Intelligence was closed, but to everybody else that was in the Empire, it was still going on and going strong, because obviously you don't really actually close that down in the middle of a fight, and also not everybody was an agent that would even know that was a thing that would happen. At the time, I didn't know that was what the Agent Quest line would do. I hadn't played one yet.
Yeah.
So that ended up creating a huge continuity problem for him, and then all the people around him, and he didn't take it too well, and he didn't take it in stride and just kind of shift around that, as you might tend to do when everybody's telling you no. But that's one of those problems that comes up when especially when you base your character on a main story quest, but also when there's one in the game too, that certain aspects of the lore and the worlds around you change, but it doesn't happen for everybody,
And
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
and it's also important that some people don't follow all the quest line all the way through, and they don't level all the way through, and they not be following that quest line.
Yeah. Or if you do, change it, put your own touches on it. Don't stick, don't stick with the story.
Don't copy it word for word. Yeah.
Because it's one thing, because everybody plays the hero. So if you play as the hero, then so's everybody else. And there's just,
right. And while we are all heroes, because we're not cabbage farmers and things like that, we're not that hero. Yeah,
I am that hero. Sorry.
Is he glaring at you?
Glaring at my screen. And then there's games like the Final Fantasy XIV, where the MSQ is important and changes things. For example, when the Sultana, quote unquote, dies, that affects the storyline and the world lore. But of course, if you're role playing and not everybody, again, like Jazz was saying, not everybody's got to that part in the MSQ. Well, that hasn't actually happened. And while that will happen in the game world, like the world itself, not everybody's on that same page. So it kind of creates, that sticky situation kind of thing. I know, like EQ2, when they had that dragon thing and those big bubbles went around the two main cities.
Yeah.
That was a visual representation of what was happening. So that actually worked pretty well. Because
it was happening to everybody.
It was happening in real time for everybody, and you didn't have to hit a certain point in a quest, which was, which definitely gives... I wasn't in it at the time, I just happened to see that, but you were there. So when it came to roleplay, was everybody just going along with that, or did they just get shuffled off?
I think a lot of people just kind of acted like it was just everyday life.
Yeah. Well, and of course, in the game world, it probably didn't happen for as long as that bubble was actually up in real time. But I know,
right?
Even still with the attacks and stuff, there were dragons bouncing off of the shield and things like that.
Exactly, and I think that a lot of people would be like, we accepted that it was happening until it wasn't.
Right.
So, until there's no visual representation in the world, saying, well, I happen to know that it's over. And, well,
yeah,
most people don't, so shut up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and that was definitely... There's a few different... what was it? The Matrix Online did some things like that as well, where they would physically change things like the Matrix got hacked or something happened after Morpheus was killed in that game. The sky actually it was really creepy. If you ever look up Matrix Online eyeballs in the sky, you'll see these pictures, and up in the sky it's like fiery red, and there's like dozens of eyeballs just peering down from the sky above you down at the ground because they had hacked the sky or something like that. Super creepy. Yeah. Very cool though. Very cool. So yeah, it's a sticky thing when you get into and I know we're kind of hitting all the bad points about a linear game, but these are the things that come up more often than not. And the other one, the biggest one probably, is the passage of the in-game's world time, which I know you can never obviously go off the day-night cycle in a video game, especially an MMO, because they typically run on an entire day will pass in an hour and a half.
Yeah, so, I was always appalled that there were always at least a few people who were like, I'm 6,000 years old because
I created my character 12 years ago when the game started. Yeah. Right.
And it's just like, I can sit here and have tea and it's 3 days.
Right.
So it can't possibly be passing that fast.
Yeah.
But they're perfectly okay with saying that it's just been a day. But then the next day they're like, oh, it's been a year. I'm now suddenly not pregnant and my child is 12.
Yeah. And in your role play, it's like, I was just in the bathroom. What the hell happened to you? I mean, it was spicy food, and I was in there for a while, but seriously, 12?
Yeah, I had that happen quite a bit in Q, and I had that happen a lot in Guild Wars 2.
It happens more often. The longer the game goes, the more it happens.
Yeah, because we would have, I had this girl come in. I was a bartender in Guild Wars 2. My character, my main, was a bartender. And there'd be fights and all this other stuff would happen. And then they'd come in and say, well, last year this happened. And she was like, dude, what have you been drinking? That was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, roll with it. It's my RP. I was like,
roll with it. It's my RP.
You don't get to fast forward a year in my RP.
Mm-mm.
I'm just going to pretend you don't exist now. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I just would watch. I mean, because I know you and I would talk about this because we did.
Yeah, I actually have that.
It was 4-to-1, I believe, is what we usually used for
that's
passage of time.
And see, I preferred, and this is where one of those things where Jazz and I we differed. I actually just preferred to use the real world, just the real world, especially on a game like EQ that had been out for so long, or EQ2, just to use real world math. You know, the year was a year. Maybe at the most, maybe accelerate it by double. She always sped it up a little bit even further than that, though. And that's just one of those things where, you know, we just kind of compromise. Like, you know, when it came to how long our characters were together, I just go with whatever she said. I mean, really, in the long run, it didn't matter more than between the two of them. To, you know.
Well, I ended up compromising a lot on that because I realized that saying 1 day is 4 days is still really hard for people. And so I decided that it actually made more sense for long term. For example, like when I left the game for 2 years, we ended up saying that it was actually 8 years.
Yeah, but
that made more sense.
And that worked out well. And the reason that worked out well for you and your guild was because at that point, almost everybody had left the guild. Everybody had left the game, even.
Yeah.
So you all coming back at the same time, it kind of worked now. And when you interacted with other people outside of that, you didn't really have any reason to bring that up, so that it wasn't even an issue. You know, it
and
didn't
when
really
we told
matter.
people that it had been, the guild had been around for 50 years instead of 10, or 12, whatever
it was. Yeah, right.
However long it was, 4 to 1. It worked because a year of role play is actually obscenely long. I mean, you're together for a year in role play.
Yeah, it can't.
That's a lot.
Well, and the other problem that comes in with stuff like that is when somebody creates what they want to be a younger character, and that younger character is a younger character, is still 19, 23, or 22 years old.
You know. Okay,
yeah.
I'm not going to. You just picked a scab. Why do you do that?
I didn't know. Because you're a woman and I don't know the twists and turns of your crazy-ass woman mind?
That is such a pet peeve of mine.
All right, pick a scab. Go ahead, pick.
Oh, God. Okay, so you have a character, and you make your character, and she's 14 years old. 8 years later in real time, you're still playing a 15-year-old child.
Right.
Now, given that if you want to say that it's been every day is a day, you know, fine. But it's still been 8 years.
She is.
This is serious stuff right here.
I actually had a friend, this girl was like, I'm 15, and I'm just like, oh, Celie. She was like, why are you hassling me about this? I'm like, your character was 14 8 years ago. Like 8 real years ago. Now, I'm okay with the whole bending of time thing. I have learned to relax mostly about this whole thing.
Yeah.
But for God's sake, it's been 8 real life years.
You should at least be 23.
8 plus 15. I can do math. Can you? And of course, they got mad at me. But you know, it's one of those things that just yeah. I'm okay now.
See, when we say we're passionate about roleplay, you don't often hear it because we joke a lot. You just heard it. It's terrifying.
Slapping her desk. She was slapping her desk.
I keep waiting to hear her kids come in the background. Mom, are you okay? Are we in trouble? No, but you should be aging at the proper rate.
And I know in my mind this is a stupid thing to be upset about, but it just makes me twitch. I can't handle it. I'm 15. You were 15 8 years ago. Let's get with
grow up. But yeah, no, I understand that, and that's you know, and that
they laugh at me, but see, they do this to me on purpose, especially him, because he knows that this sets me off.
I know nothing. I actually had forgot. I actually didn't know that was a pet peeve of yours. I know a lot about you. That one is new to me.
Oh, well, you're forgiven this time around then.
I was just bringing it up because I've seen it happen. Where like, yeah, I've been, like you said, 15 for 8 years. It's like, you should grow up, Peter Pan. But you know, and then there's, like you said, then there's the other extreme where you know they started out at 100 and now they're like, I'm 5,000 years old. It's like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. Stop it.
But that's one of those contentious things that can come up in roleplay when you don't know, because even in games like, you know, EQ2, almost all of them, they're very they never really tell you exactly how quick, like story wise, if it's a story based game, how much time passes from, you know, quest to quest and time, you know, things like that. Like, you know, look at the show for Game of Thrones, for using another example, you know, like a single season of that could be several years. Actually, just from one episode to the next could be months or years. Yeah. You know, it just depends. But they don't advertise that. But you know,
but they're also all in agreement because it's all one story, right?
Exactly. So but in an MMO, it would be nice if the devs would be like, timelines. I never understand why they don't use friggin' timelines to be like, all right, so this, you know, here's when the game started, and here's this expansion 2 years later. I'd be like, if I ever made my own MMO, that's exactly what I would do for story.
Well, I mean, and the thing is they do have timelines, and they do actually use them, but most people ignore them for obvious reasons, because it's been 20, 30 years, and it's really only been, you know, 5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they do use it, but not to the extreme where I've always said that it would make more sense for people to have longer days in MMOs instead of shorter ones. So that...
Yeah, and do it on a cycle so that, you know, and don't do it on such a ready cycle that the day cycle comes along at the exact same time every day. Do it at like an hour or, you know, something 45 minutes, like, so that
but that an hour in game is actually 45 minutes,
right? Yeah. So that, you know, or like, you know, like so that
or longer, like it's an hour and a half, so that
right. But stagger it so that if someone's playing at 8 p.m. Central every single day, that they're not constantly stuck at night every day. That slowly. It'll be daytime while they're playing, and then it will slowly shift back to, you know, dawn and nighttime. They can do that, but man, I don't know if it's just that they don't want the night cycle to be so long, or the day cycle. I'd even be good if the day cycle took longer and the night cycle was shorter. Because
the reason that they take that is because they write the algorithm in such a way so that the same mobs will show up at the same time on a regular basis throughout a 24-hour period of real life time. And I get that, but there are ways to do it that
math ways
that make sense without having a day be 15 minutes. It's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have a mob show up 3 times a day and have it on a 36-hour cycle or whatever. I just never understood that.
Why they do a whole day in an hour even is almost too fast.
Yeah.
So but anyway, so that's one of those. That's probably the time thing is one of those, as you could tell, big points of contention. Like Seriously said, I actually know who Seriously's talking about. I remember him in BDO. Guy got him and his demon wife Prager's, and they did the passage of time as in the game, which, like, when you're doing the demon thing, you don't really even have to use that. You could just, you know, metagame that part, and demons grow faster than real people. Who gives a shit? Also, you're not being original by playing a part demon character.
Yes.
Also one with crazy red eyes where you say, and you pretty much openly say, I'm part demon.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a entire thing that I think we've gotten into before. Let's see. Also, with the linear MMOs that make things like difficult in roleplay in some zones, or it makes difficult. Oh, Jesus. The linear part of MMOs can make role-playing in some zones hard due to the levels and being unable to go in there without either being killed. My example is this, and if they're ever listening, it doesn't matter. I don't like your event anyway, and it was stupid. The scavenger hunt where they would, you know, apparently without telling people that you needed to be max level, so that if you brought your low-level character that was level 20, which was what I had, which was a good guy, that you
would get attacked.
You would go into zones. Exactly. But they
didn't. You couldn't attack anything. We weren't allowed to attack the cards.
Yeah, and we weren't allowed to attack things because they thought they were cute. That's beside the point. But the thing is if you're going to run an event like that, you need to tell people you need to be max level. Don't bring your low-level characters because you're going to zones where you're going to be attacked. However, they didn't say that, and then it was my fault, of course, that I kept getting attacked and slowing things down because I was made aware of where we were going.
in this game and games like it, the non-linear games, that's not an issue because all people are attackable regardless of level because the zones automatically shift.
Yeah, and so but it can lock you out of entire zones, which even if you're not attacked, I know kind of like what happens with expansions. Right now when we roleplay, if somebody doesn't have the Morrowind expansion, and that's where the roleplay is, we either have to change it so they can come, or they're just SOL. Which at this point, if you don't buy an expansion for an MMO after the first month, in my book, you're just SOL. I understand finances are what they are, but
you can also plan ahead and save money.
Right, but you also can't hold, what's the old say? A nickel's holding up a dollar. A dime
You can't hold it against other people if their events don't include you.
Right.
When you can't or won't take the necessary steps to
save a little bit of cash, or and I understand money is tight all around.
Money's tight
for everybody.
For everyone,
right? And I get that, but like I said, right off the bat, totally cool, But after a month or so, especially on an expansion, for example, when you knew it was coming out a year in advance, you could save up $40.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, skip a couple Big Macs, or I don't know, 2 cups of coffee at crappy Starbucks. If you like Starbucks, sorry, their coffee's burnt and tastes gross. But
so I'm not the only person that thinks it tastes burnt. That's kind of funny.
No, it actually leaves a weird taste in it makes my mouth feel like I've got a film on my tongue, which is gross. But that's beside the point of our coffee choices.
There was also Star Wars: The Old Republic. It was one that was hard. If you didn't have the levels, there was places there was really good RP. You just couldn't go to them, like Nar Shaddaa or the Ring in the Sky. What was that?
Yeah, eventually they made it so you could actually get to Nar Shaddaa.
Without doing the main story quest.
But initially, when the game first opened, you couldn't get there, and they eventually made it so you could.
Yeah.
But what I always told people was, there's absolutely no reason why you can't at least level your character to 15 so you can get the freaking ship. Shut up.
Right.
Because once you have the ship, you could go to Nar Shaddaa.
Yeah.
But there were people who were level 3 who were complaining because they couldn't get to Nar Shaddaa, and it's like, just level the 15 levels. It takes all of a day.
Not even, just a handful.
But I mean,
of
like,
hours.
if all you have is a few hours, then it really doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
Stop whining and go away.
You're hurting yourself more than anything else.
Yeah.
But so all right, and with so we'll go into open world roleplay because we're about an hour into this. So open world man, I apologize. I am just
good.
I speak like a big boy with my tongue. Open world RP
so many things I could say to that.
That's right, baby. Often doesn't run into these issues for, like we were saying, for example, ESO, the shit levels to you. And as I also said with ESO, the main story quest, which I recently beat, it didn't change. It affects the world in a way. You go after the big baddie and all that stuff, even though their anchors continue to fall regardless. But that's what the game does. So you can continue on as if that's never happened. It's because, as far as other characters are concerned, it never really has happened, because it would require you to be playing the Vestige and the Chosen One and all that stuff. So a lot of that, while it's a lot of fun to do, and it was I enjoyed the hell out of the ESO main story quest and almost all the quests that they have in there, it doesn't affect roleplay whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. And from what I've seen, and you guys could tell me, I've never seen anybody, they barely even bring up Moloch Ball outside of, offhanded that, of what's going on around them. Has anybody else heard anything other than,
not in RP.
Most people at roleplay don't even address it because he's such a, horrible person. So, nobody really, unless you're like totally into his badness, I think most people don't even think about
Right.
it that much.
Yeah, like you're aware of what's going on kind of story-wise around you, that these supposedly these anchors and things like that, but most people it doesn't really come up. So someone coming, no one's ever come in and been like, I defeated Moloch Ball single-handedly. It's like, well,
No, that one's. I'm not
No,
seeing
no
that
one's
one
even
yet.
yeah, no one's even been like, I kind of like the guy. Pretty sure that would get your ass beat. But like, hey, Nazis are great, in Harlem. It wouldn't work out too well.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I think that you don't see as much in ESO of people RPing out the storyline, which is odd because I was really kind of braced for it, and there's very few people that actually do in this game. So I was happily surprised to not see that.
Yeah, and even even like like the quest lines, there's just, I think part of it is that there's so many of them. Even if somebody is using like, yeah, I was off adventuring and I ran into these miners and had to help them out, and there's so many quests similar to that, and but they're all so different. You may not even know that that's exactly where they got their inspiration from. And then there's other people that are like, that specifically call out the fact that they're looking for sky shards and talk about their gear every 5 seconds. It's like, all right, you really got to come up with something other than just playing the game mechanics as though that's role play. It gets a little stale every time we bump into each other, but maybe that's just me.
No, I think I think a lot of us feel that way. You want people to understand that while it's understandable that you RP what you play, it's actually not roleplay.
It's not creative, and it doesn't expand your character, or it doesn't even have a narrative, really. It's just you doing things and then talking about them after the fact. It's, I can tell you all about what I did all day long, but you're not going to think it was that epic when I tell you of the... Okay.
Well, if you put a spin on it, if you just not like, I went and got the sky shard, but say, you had an adventure.
Right. If you put that
go
spin
into
on
details.
it.
Yeah.
Problem with what I'm talking about is they don't. So.
Yeah. The lack of creativity is hard to deal with.
Now.
And some people just don't have an imagination for it. They try.
Yeah.
But some people just don't have that.
Yeah. Unlike the lady I had today, who, I don't think I even told you this, son. I'm a mail carrier in real life. I had to go to someone's door. 66-year-old black lady, in her bra.
Oh my.
She had a shirt. No she had a shirt. She wasn't wearing the shirt. She was just using it like a shawl to cover herself up. And she's like, at first I had a package. She's like, I don't want it. They're trying to scam me again. I was like, it's from so-and-so up in, oh, she's like, oh, I do want that. I had a stroke 3 weeks ago. I'm like, oh, here we go. And she's like, hold on, I got to get this shirt on. You don't want to see no 66-year-old black titty. Quoting that.
Oh my goodness.
Quoting that, by the way. And then
I almost spit my drink all over my computer.
And she's such a character. I've actually met her before, and she's got two shitty little Yorkies that are escape artists. They're actually very sweet dogs. They come right to me, but they kept escaping. So I knocked. They were in her front yard escaping, and I went and knocked on her yard and said, "Your dogs keep getting out. Your little artists are out." And she's like, "Oh, thank you. They're my babies. You understand what it's like." It's like, I have dogs. That's why I'm here. And but she was telling me she had the stroke 3 weeks ago, and I do feel bad for her. But she obviously is doing pretty okay because she was talking and able to talk very loudly on her front porch at me. But she did have the capillary bursts in her eyes, and she was like, it felt like someone had punched me, but Jesus held me up. And then I know it gets better. Hold on. Which is fine. I completely believe that's what she goes for. But the ironic part was when she got onto another topic a split second later, because I was like, okay, you definitely had a stroke because your stream of consciousness, ma'am, is just so far out there. And she's like, but my doctor told me I needed to go to walk. He's like, really? I told him, really? Do you want me walking around here? It's actually a very safe neighborhood. I don't know why she thinks it's a bad neighborhood. It's really, really safe. There's plenty of good people in it. She's like, Someone come after me. Sorry. God damn it, I'm gonna whoop their ass. It's like, what happened to the Jesus saved you thing just a second ago? You realize your words are kind of contradicting themselves, ma'am. But she was such a. That's one of the things as a male carrier. People that you don't normally meet out in public, we go to their front door. We've met them all.
You meet some very interesting people.
Oh, she's
that I believe.
It's Miss her name was Miss Lee as well. She's a sweetheart, and I think in her words, thank God she survived. I wouldn't want anybody to have a stroke, obviously, but the burst capillaries apparently in her eyes were because she had several mini strokes before the main one that had popped them in her optic nerve. But like I said, she signed her name and was talking and carrying on. So more power to Miss Lee. Shout out to you, Miss Lee. Not that you'll ever hear this. Thank God. But anyway,
you didn't tell me all about that today.
No, I didn't get a chance to. I didn't get a chance to tell you I almost saw a 66-year-old titty. Well, to be fair, they were around her belly button, so it's all right. It was a big shirt. Some things you can't unsee. Anyway.
Or unhear.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we were at with the open world. The expansions in MSQ kind of exist in a vacuum. Most people do their passage of time. We kind of went into that. Some of them do it real world. How do you do your time travel in this one, Jazz? We've never really even talked about it since we're so new to the game. It's never really come up.
For what?
What you
lost me.
How time passes in ESO to you?
Oh, I pretty much just have always followed the 4 to 1 for long term and just day to day for daily stuff. So after I've been in the game for a year, I'll say it's 4 years. But yeah. I'm not even going to worry about it till I've been in game for a year. Mm-hmm. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's one way that works. It's just one of those things.
You certainly sold me on it. That was I really got to thinking about what you said back then, and I was like, he has a point. It's really hard to, because we were having a guild meeting every week, and I was saying that it was once a month, and it was just losing everyone. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, you know what? We're just gonna go with weeks are weeks, days are days, months are months, and once we get into years, we start skipping.
You can be like, so many years ago this happened, and if somebody calls you on it, just be like, it doesn't really, just it doesn't really matter. It still happened in the past. Just go with that then, if that makes you happier, because there's nothing wrong with your characters being on two different, kind of timelines, if you will. Because in the end, the RP has happened, and very rarely is the time going to matter so much as, it's not going to make a difference in the actual role play. You're not. It's not like the real world where if you did something like that, you'd be like, and I missed 3 house payments. We're homeless.
Well, I remember back on Vacarina, back in the day, she was a midwife. I don't even remember that. Mm-hmm. She would deliver babies for people, and she delivered this baby, and then roleplay happened. And it was like 2 or 3 months later, I was doing something, and this girl walked up and was talking to me, and she called me Auntie Vaca. And of course, Vaca was like, I'm sorry, excuse me? Far too familiar with her for her comfort level. And she was like, well, you delivered me. Vaca's like, I did. Who are you again? And she gave her name, and I didn't remember the name of the kid. I mean, who remembers that?
Right.
And
when you're not a real doctor, yeah.
Right. She was her last name, and she went, wait, is this your mother? And she said, yes. And Vaca was like, you were born last week. She says to me, Natelle, just roll with it.
Like, all right, whatever.
So, Vaca delivered a baby, and 1 week later, she was 17. Great. Okay.
Why not?
My brain at all.
Boy, God, wouldn't that be nice if that really worked like that?
Oh, your kids seriously, just skip the whole team.
And then 2 weeks later, they'd be out of the house. Oh, that'd be so great. Can we do that?
Yeah, I don't think the law allows that, no.
The law doesn't? Fuck the law. But so that's kind of where we are. In the end, of course, so long as the MMO supports roleplay, that's one of the most important things. There's always definitely ups and downs to each style and version of MMO and how it affects the RP community. You know, you basically, just like all things, you got to go with the game that really, I guess, gets your creative juices flowing and keeps you interested in the interims between them. So
Yeah.
This is more. It doesn't. They'll tell you. You know, we're not telling you to definitely only do this version of it or this version of it, because you'd miss out on some good MMOs and good roleplay. While there's been lots of them that we've not stuck with, we still enjoyed our time in them. You know, and I wouldn't. You know, like whether that's Star Wars and for some of us older guys, the Star Wars Galaxies or the Matrix Online back in the day, I wouldn't give up having played any of those games or the roleplay that happened in them, even if it was, you know, only a couple months to a couple years. So,
yeah, totally.
But we're just kind of going over, that's just kind of some of the things that you may or may not come into depending on what style of game you're in or just in roleplay in general. So, does anybody have anything else before I start closing this thing down?
No, I think we covered it really well.
Okay. All right. Well, of course, you can contact us at rpmmoradio@gmail.com or on facebook.com at rp/rpmmoradio or Twitter at rpmmoradio. And of course, we still have our Instagram, which is at rpmmoradio. You got it.